Welcome everybody to season 2. Oh my gosh, so excited. Season 2, episode 20. This is our second episode of the season. I hope you were joining us for the first episode, or episode 19 as it were. Such fun conversations. I'm so excited to have this team back together to be doing the podcast again. I am here with Luke today. Welcome, Luke.
What is going on?
We are going to talk about some really fun things, talk about some music that we're listening to, some news, and a special interview that we've done with Brad Montague, who's just an amazing person.
Yeah.
Is good. But let's start at the top. I would love to share about an artist I have been listening to. I didn't even realize how much he was popping up on my playlists because I let my Spotify algorithms kind of take over sometimes. Until one day I listened to his lyrics, I'm like, who is this kid? He is awesome. His name is Shaya Zamora. I hope I'm saying that right.
Shaya Zamora.
Shaya Zamora came out of nowhere for me. But it turns out in 2024, he had 7.97 million listeners, 106 million streams. In my opinion, he's gritty, he's soulful, his lyrics are poetic, and I almost call him like a covert Christian because he's getting into these playlists like Benson Boone, Alex Warner, Gavin Graham, like these people who are not Christians, but his Christian music is getting in on these other playlists. And I know part of it's my algorithms, and part of it is just because I think people don't realize that he is singing about our all-powerful God. I can't spit out the words because I'm so excited to talk about it.
When you said his name, I did some research, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude's on fire. I mean, he's got like an Imagine Dragons sound to him. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because you're right. When you, like, I'm a Spotify guy. That may be a hot takes down the road of like Spotify or iTunes, Apple Music. But when you go to like his radio on Spotify, it's a ton of artists that are not like Crowder or, 116 artists and stuff like that. That's actually pretty sick. Like, his music's good. So
yeah, it is. I love him because of the very poetic lyrics that he has. I think his biggest song is called Pretty Little Devil. Check it out. He's awesome. I think it's great. I also just want to say these links to some of the people and the news that we're going to be talking about are in the show notes. So go look there specifically. You don't have to search too much. It'll be there.
Put it on repeat.
Yes, put him on repeat. I just want to give the shout out Tommy Prophet, who is, I would say, a friend of Salt. We all love Tommy. He came to Salt one year. He did our opener for us one year, but he follows him. So to me, that's some credibility.
That says something.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have to see if Tommy knows him, and we can maybe invite him
a collab.
Yeah. Something.
They should do a collab, and they should collab with us.
All right, we'll work on that. Put that in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, Luke, you have a great production and technical mind. And so you've got a news story that I would love to talk about for more of our like geeky nerd production guys a bit.
Let me set this up. I feel like, and anybody listening to this may resonate with this, but I feel like every client we work with, every pastor I meet, they're always like, oh my gosh, the Sphere, it's the coolest thing in the world. And every tech guy's like, okay, we don't have that sort of money. We don't have that, we don't have that much LED.
Youth pastor thinks we can pull it off, or the worship leader. Yeah.
But I came across this the other day because I really do think there's a lot of incredible stuff happening at the Sphere. In fact, I heard rumors that some of the Life Church, the Bible app team, were trying to do something at the Sphere. I don't know if it ended up happening or if it's still going to come, but they just crossed like 2 billion downloads. So they were going to try and celebrate that, which is what got me on the Sphere thought. And as I was doing some research, have you heard about this new project that just got greenlit? They're going to try and resurrect the 1939 original version of The Wizard of Oz and figure out how to make this all immersive viewing of it.
Number one, how that movie, like why that movie? Why is that the movie? I would think How to Train Your Dragons or something epic that you're like flying around, or Avatar. Can you imagine Avatar in there?
That would be awesome. But Caitlin, that would be too easy, right? Like all you have to do is go back into the render files and like just expand your canvas. Think about this. This is 19 or whatever I just said, 1860, whatever. I'm just going to make up numbers
1800s.
Now. Yeah, 1939 film. Like there's an article we'll put in the show notes that kind of was the spearhead of this, but they're trying to use like AI technology. They're going to tap Pixar and RenderMan to try and kind of help create like more immersive worlds as like they're walking down Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah.
But what they were saying is interesting about this is that this is one of the first projects in the Sphere that is not using the 18K by 18K big sky camera that like Darren Aronofsky's Postcard from Earth was done with. So it's kind of cool that they're can use AI to like upscale this thing. And I don't know, there's a ton of technology, and then they got to remix all the sound to be an immersive sound. And I don't know, so it's going to be fun.
Me not having quite the technical mind you do, I'm trying to think through like the to-do list of everything. Number one, you have to have a 360 view of the movie, right? And
that is a 16K
behind the camera.
Image.
Yeah. Oh my word. So 360 view, around, on top, all of it. You talked about
keeping original footage.
Yeah, original footage. Like that, how in the world? I remember Lord of the Rings talking about how they burned film because they had so much and it didn't go into the movie, so they got rid of it. Like you just wonder what's still saved. But
I'll leave this real quick, and then we'll put the link in the show notes. You guys can go look at this and read it with your team. But the coolest part, and maybe the best part for the church, is they're estimating the project to take something that already exists and make it into the sphere is going to be like $80 million.
Wow!
So that's just an easy setup, guys. When your pastor comes to you and says, "We want to do Sphere for Christmas or Easter or something like that," just be like, "Yeah, well, Wizard of Oz needs $80 million to take something that already exists and make it happen." So just help me with that budget. Maybe that'll help.
What's the budget you have in mind? $80 million is what you're asking for, but what do we actually have?
Exactly.
That's a great way to approach leadership with their new ideas. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, I want to dive into our interview with Brad Montague because as we're talking about imagining new space and creativity, like he is such a brilliant creative mind.
Brilliant.
I feel like you talk to him or you watch his stuff and you just know he is all about creativity and kindness. Like those are like his themes, which is awesome.
And he talks about how he wants to write books for anyone who was a child. Or is childlike.
He doesn't write children's books. He writes people who were once kids, but you might know him. He was the creator of Kid President. It was like his little brother who was the Kid President. Also Soul Pancake. He has a show on Magnolia Network, which is the Chip and Joanna Gaines network. So go check out that. By the way,
I know we're throwing fun facts out, but he's like good friends with Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute.
Yeah, Dwight Schrute.
And I think he did a lot of that Soul Pancake Kid President stuff.
Yep, they did that together. Yeah, they're like besties from decades ago, like they've been friends forever. Well, he's been a SALT Mainstage keynote, and he's got some awesome books, Failibration and Fantastic Bureau of Imagination, which are great books. I know kids love them and adults love them.
My girls love it. There's all these little characters in Fantastic Bureau, or FBI as it kind of is. Yeah. And my daughter loves to just like follow. She's like, "Oh, that's my favorite Figment," and so it's so fun. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, check out details about him in our show notes, but take a listen to this interview that we did with Brad.
Hello, welcome. We are in Dallas, Texas for SALT 2024, and I am sitting with the incredible Brad Montague. I'm going to read a quick little bio for those of you that may not be familiar with him. Brad is a New York Times bestselling author for kids and former kids. He is the creator of the web series Kid President and circles all around the world, and most recently, Fail-a-thon. Brad lives in Tennessee with his wife and kids, and he's currently to be seen as the host of a television special, The Kindness Project, on the Magnolia Network and Discovery Plus. Is that pretty accurate, or you're like, things have changed already?
It was close.
It was close.
Oh, you were great. You're a master, Sojo.
How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. It's good to be here.
You're in Dallas. Do you come to Dallas a lot?
Usually it's a layover.
Really?
Yeah, the airport, so rarely do I get to get out of the plane.
You just got off a 14 city tour. This wasn't on the 14 cities, 14 stops?
We did Houston. But Houston. Yeah.
There's rivalry between the two cities.
I'm so
now
sorry.
He just fed into it. He chose Houston over Dallas.
I didn't choose. They chose me. Dallas can choose me. I have a website.
Okay, Dallas, you heard.
Dallas, call. You know where I am. It's fun to be in Dallas. It's fun to be out. Yeah.
What are you thinking about doing?
Is it fun?
Is it? Well, because listen, I just did a whole, I went to all the stops. I shot an all-day video yesterday, and it was Sojo Visits Dallas. So they took me to all the top things. And my thought was, it's so wide. It's almost overwhelming.
Okay.
It's flat, it's huge, it's wide. And so I was like, I think I got a grasp of Dallas, but I don't know for sure.
No, you did the thing, like somebody at a restaurant, if you're eating, like, oh, this food's good. And somebody with you says, is it good? It's fun. Is it fun?
That is exactly what I do.
Did you have any good food? Any barbecue? Anything?
I did. I had a Whataburger. I mean, everyone says you got to do it. Everyone down here calls it Waterburger. I said Whataburger. They said Waterburger. And I said Whataburger. And they said Waterburger. So that was a bit of but it was good. Okay. It was really good. I've been to Dallas many times. So I've had they have great steak. I mean, I feel like every time I come down here, I get good grill food. I feel like Austin, I love their barbecue. Now, Dallas people can get mad at me because they're going to be like, you haven't had Dallas barbecue. But I feel like all my fond barbecue memories are all Austin.
No, a lot of people think politics are divisive or what. No, barbecue, I think, is the most divisive thing. My town, Henderson, Tennessee, West Tennessee, we have a barbecue festival. And they're very passionate about pulled pork barbecue.
Oh.
Jack's Creek, Tennessee is this famous, it's apparently known for the, we are, not apparently, they are known for the barbecue. And so I'm always fascinated when people are like, oh, that's not barbecue. It's, it's the mustardy sauce. We're from Carolina. No, it's the brisket.
Memphis is
very
vinegar
passionate about barbecue.
Is Memphis vinegary barbecue?
You're gonna get me in trouble if we talk about it. I love Memphis barbecue. Sometimes they put the sweet.
Is that the kind of where you're just talking about? Was that Memphis style barbecue?
Memphis style.
Because when I think Tennessee barbecue, I think a little bit vinegar. Which isn't my favorite, but I appreciate it. I do appreciate it.
Well, sometimes they put the sweet stuff in there, so it's like a thick syrupy. If you go to like one of the Beale Street places.
Oh, come on, I love Beale Street.
Yeah,
some music. It's a vibe. It's a whole vibe.
It is.
Broadway almost overwhelming. Beale Street just right for me.
Beale Street is great. In high school, I grew up on a farm outside of Memphis in Somerville, small town. And I was playing music, and a friend said, "If you should go play a Beale Street." And I was like, "Well, no, I don't have nobody's asked me to, I don't know how you get a gig on Beale Street."
Yeah,
BB King, legend. What do you do? So just go play. And so I did, and so I would set up on some Friday nights and go and play on the street, Beale Street. And I that was some of my first time of learning how to be like with an audience, because nobody's asked me to play. Nobody's wanting you to play. And so I was like realizing, but if I wrote songs about people as they walked by, and so I would, make money and then be asked to leave by the police.
Excuse me, sir.
And
you are not Elvis.
Do you have a permit for this? And then I would, but I got great experience points,
really?
Of like how to.
And that was how you first learned to start working in front of a crowd.
Working people, and you talk and you meet and you share, and people,
Well, if we're starting on origin stories, that's a perfect way for me to ask, like, what is the origin story of you, and then as well, Kid President, which became such a huge success? What is the story behind that?
I mean, I think like most people who want to create things or have that dysfunction of like, I need to make something. I was a creative kid who didn't quite know what to do with it, and didn't know. I loved to draw, loved stories, loved to entertain, but was always like, I don't know what to do with this. And even now, I'm still on that path of, I have this great story I want to tell, but I don't know what to do with this thing. And so picture books now have been this place where I can do that thing that I like to do. But it started as, a weird fourth grader and wanting to express some idea, and a teacher who helped me along and said, you know what, these are actually really creative and this is interesting, and saw something that made me realize, okay, I'm not totally broken. This is could be of use or helpful to people.
I mean, when it comes to fostering creativity, tell me what that means to you and what it even looks like for you. It's funny you even say that you have sometimes a writer's block, or you might have an idea that you're like, I don't know how to get out, because so many people look at you and it feels like you just are an idea generator. I mean, you're just natural.
I wouldn't say it's writer's block. I have a waiting room of ideas, and they're wanting to, but it's finding the right expression for it. So it's going, is this a song? And then going, but I'm not a musician. Like, how do I do this? Like that the desire to share something often surpasses my ability. So like I will have an image of something I want to draw, but I'm not an excellent artist in the way that people, might think of when they think of someone who's going to draw a horse. So mine look like little potatoes, but there's a charm to these little potatoes, and they came from the heart. And that's always been the theme of my work, is that there's this big lump in my throat. That's how Robert Frost talked about poetry.
Mhm.
Like, it starts as a lump in the throat. This big lump in my throat of wanting to share something big with the world. And then this like little ability to share the thing. And so they turn out as, this film in my mind, and it becomes a little YouTube video, or this epic painting and it becomes a little comic. But the heart is
So let me ask you this. How do you wrestle with the compromise of what it is in your head versus what it may end up having to become due to maybe not as much resources, not as much time as you want to have, maybe not as much talent to be able to do exactly what you imagine? Like, I'd imagine you always have grand ideas, but a lot of times you may not have the ability. So you have to adjust and compromise. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, there's that gap between which is kind of any person creating anything has, whether it's throwing a party or taking a photo or any creative endeavor, that image in your mind and then the reality, expectation versus outcome. And that stalls people from doing anything. Yeah. Because they want it to be perfect. And so spending a lot of time in classrooms or with kids, I see it a lot where the message I want them to know is, I know you're not Van Gogh yet, but like, dude, just make a thing. Like you it's amazing. Draw the rocket. Let's see it. And then they do. And we would have missed out on something. Yep. So I see that a lot with people of like, but I'm not that thing. And I feel that tension too. And yet some of my favorite singers can't really sing. Some of my favorite musicians can't hit all the right notes. Some of my favorite bands are scrappy, but like there's this passion and heart and so that looming cloud of perfection that we somehow let haunt us needs to be poofed. It needs to be popped. And that's been really exciting to see what that reveals for people. Because for me, it's freed me from worrying about, but I'm not this artist, or I'm not this. Instead, it's, I don't have something to prove. I just have something to share. And so I'm not trying to impress you. Yep. I just want to encourage you, or I want to share this with you. And it's a different posture as an artist to show up that way.
Were you always encouraged when it comes to creativity? I mean, since you were a kid, you say you started 4th grade. Were your parents or guardians always supportive of your creative dreams, or did you dream something different younger? Did you want to do business and then kind of evolve into this, or did you always know?
I was never discouraged from creating.
Really?
But never actively encouraged, or never like thought it was possible to do as a living, because it seemed like, all right, you're distracted, you're drawing birds again, like come on, let's get back on track. My parents, wonderful people, very practical. They went normal professions. Like dad was a farmer, mom the nurse, and which are wonderful occupations that actually benefit the world every day. If there was a zombie apocalypse, we would want them, not a person who's drawing birds, right? And writing poetry about them. And yet, that there's this wonderful thing that happened for me, where over and over I had teachers or other people show up and help me see that the arts can be, the arts and storytelling can be really beneficial ways of bringing people together, of expressing or communicating ideas, and finding not only my voice, but finding a way to help other people find their voices. And I wasn't discouraged from it. But
I love how you said that, because I honestly would say that kind of was my parents. I mean, they didn't discourage me, but they didn't really encourage it. It was more like, oh, that's what you do in your free time. And then eventually you're like, no, this is what I want to do.
I don't know. They started like, it was like this alien child that showed up. They're like, couldn't you like football? Like, do you want to go outside? There's this, we don't understand this creative child.
Do you even remember what anything you did in your early days and those early formative years that made an impact that you were like, I mean, you're talking about finding your voice. Now you're so accomplished. We have all these things. It's like, well, you know, this is Brad and he's written this and he's directed this and he's got a new book. But do you remember if it was a poem or a drawing or something you did in your younger days that you're like, I think this is my voice. That I'm proud of something I created there.
It's funny now. I mean, but like I had started a comic strip that was just for me and my friends. And then a teacher said, hey, this could go in the school newspaper. And I went to a K through 12 school in a small town. And so the high schoolers were these super cool people that were in the same building, but we did not interact. And they ran the school newspaper. And I was a fourth grader making this comic. And my teacher took it to the high schoolers, and then it became part of the school newspaper.
No way. Fourth grade.
And I remember thinking, like, some part of me is like, oh, they just think it's because it's, oh, this little kid made a comic. Like, I remember thinking, but I remember seeing people laugh or seeing them like connect with, oh, here's this quiet kid has a lot going on inside him. So it became a different way to not have to be the loudest person in the room, but to create something that you know, disrupted things.
Are you an introvert?
No, I love people. I get energy from, because an extrovert, I think, from my understanding, gets energy. I love being around people and get energized from it. So I don't feel like I'm a true introvert, but I don't feel the desire to be the loudest in the room.
Same. I get that. I get exactly what you're saying. You're right.
And that's why public speaking doesn't necessarily frighten me, but because then it's like, okay, this is an organized way to share an idea with a room full of people instead of having to interrupt.
And those are the best ones. I mean, I think as soon as you start talking in public speaking arenas, you're just so captivating, and it just shows that you've taken time to think and notice the small things to be able to, and sometimes it's the smallest things that make the biggest impact and change people's behaviors or even the way that they look at things. So I think that was one of the first things I thought when watching you live. I thought you can tell he's a thoughtful individual. Did you have any childhood heroes growing up that you looked at and you said, that person's inspiring to me?
Oh man.
Now you're that to so many kids. So many adults that look at you and say, I want to create inspiring work like this person.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, so many of the people that I still look to as teachers or as like North Stars were people that impacted me when I was a child. That's why, like, hanging up in our studio is this big sign. We weren't sure what we were going to do with our creative studio, but knew we wanted to be who we needed when we were younger. Wow. So it's this be who you needed when you were younger. And just that's been a North Star, like, kind of mission as we thought through, like, what are the people that made us feel like life was worth living or helped us realize we mattered. And it was a lot of those kind of, there's those personal relationships of friends, teachers, coaches, relatives. But on the creative side, it was, Fred Rogers and LeVar Burton and Jim Henson and these people that were creatively engaged with life in unique ways that spoke directly to, I thought Mr. Rogers was talking directly to me. And it turns out millions of kids felt the same way. And so that has been a source of inspiration, and I still get like turned into a kid as you think about those people. It's true.
Those were such impactful shows. I mean, I watched all of them, so I can't even act like I don't understand what you're saying. LeVar was big in my life. I would say, watching him. I mean, I thought he navigated. I feel like I knew him, but he made me. Yeah, he expanded my view of the world. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, it's like a big brother.
He was like a big brother.
He made you like look at things that were hard, but you felt like, okay, it was safe to go there with him.
For some young ones that may not know, super young Gen Zers, he had a show called Reading Rainbow. And so that was the show we're talking LeVar. But he was also Jordy on Star Trek.
TNG. No,
I followed him from Reading Rainbow into Star Trek. I said, I
yeah.
got you, bro. I'm going to hold you down. I'm
Yes.
going into your new chapter.
I got to meet him last year for the first time.
Kidding me.
And you know, I turned into a kid again meeting him, and it was this interaction where he's so present with people, and we got to talk about all my favorite things because he too was Fred Rogers, Fred championed his work, and they so we got to connect on that. Got to talk about Star Trek, which is a thing I love, and we got to talk about kids and books, and so it's just truly something he believes in, and he lives it, and so it's just really one of those. They say don't meet your heroes.
It's kind of surreal.
No, he lives it.
Well, in a second, I want you to kind of break down Fail-a-thon or Failabration, Fail-a-thon.
We could start a Fail-a-thon too.
That's true. We'll do a Fail-a-thon too.
Pay me. Call in now.
I guess in a very real question, you couldn't create as much as you create without some type of criticism. And so what has it been like? You're such a positive person. What has it been like to navigate maybe people misunderstanding your art or even being very critical in a negative way about your art? How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, I think my first big experience with that was when we began working in YouTube and with Kid President. It was this web series that, you know, started as a family project and then evolved into, you know, not just our small town watching it, but, you know, people all over the world. And so you can't control the context in which people see things online. So sometimes it's people who know you or who are aware. And that was a massive education for me in how messages are received or miscommunicated. And there's a humanity that gets lost when you create things for a mass audience sometimes. And so we would get messages where people are like, this is dumb, or this is dismiss it, or, you know, make up some weird backstory about who I was, what we're doing, and just like got out of control. And I felt so like not just a loss of control, but a loss of hope of like, oh, why am I even like, I would get like an avalanche of this negativity, it would feel like.
Golly.
And it would stop me in my tracks sometimes for days or weeks of just, I don't know how to receive this much information and it be negative and not have the ability to stand up for myself or like speak. And a thing that became really helpful for me was first like not putting all my attention online and surrounding myself with people that did know me and that I like family and friends that I could talk to and they could affirm that I was not totally off track.
Right.
But then also like having a healthy relationship with all that information coming at me. Cause it was just, you know, going from a few dozen people watching a thing to millions is, you know, at first you're going, yay. And then, yay, people are watching. And then, oh no, people are watching. And so I had to stop seeing this as, oh, here's another hater. Oh, here's a troll. Instead go, oh, here's, this is just a human being who wants to be loved. Like, this is just a human being who wants to be loved. So if it was like a really nice comment, it was like, okay, that's very nice, but there's just a human being who wants to be loved. Like, I want to see them. I see you. Thank you. But if it's somebody who's like, hey, this is dumb. It's like, hey, totally fine if you don't like this. Just wanted you to know I'm a real person. I read that. Like, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And I found that even if they didn't like it as a negative comment, and I just sort of reminded them, hey, I'm a person. I see this. There was this response of respecting that, oh, hey, it's fine. I was just being whatever.
Yeah.
And it became a posture of how I would show up online of, okay, I'm just a human. They're just a human. Any ways I can remind them that, hey, you're a person too. And I'm a person. I'm just trying to make stuff. So it started to like fall into not just how I showed up and how I made things online. It became more handmade. Everything became handwritten. Everything had a texture to it. It was just like whatever I can do to make this about a person connecting with other people. And so my relationship now with like somebody who doesn't like my work or doesn't understand or misunderstand. Like I feel like I'm grounded in a more real place with real people and can connect and then also on the other side of that of when you release books, you have again you can't control the context in which someone finds a book or where they are and how books find people. And we have an art show that's opening in a month. And it is a Failibration. It's an extension of our book.
Yeah. And
as part of it, I've took some words from a Kirkus review of one of our books.
Really?
That just like someone who's not a child reviewing a book for children and going like, I don't get it. And I'm kind of like, it's not for you, man. Like, you're not 5. Like, that's fine.
I don't know. I just don't get this one.
Yeah. And one of the things they went on and on about the illustrations and how good they are. And I was like, oh, they love it. And it's like, fun to look at, but it's overdone.
Oh, no.
And that line just like stuck in my head forever because, you pour your heart into a book
so
and the illustrations, and I had spent so much, and they're like fun to look at, but it's overdone. So I just took that line and created so much work that's just like fun to look at, but overdone.
Oh,
like a picture of the ocean, fun to look at, but it's overdone. Like everything. I was like, what kind of, so that, but the way that words have power over us sometimes is just not okay. and so the fault is on me of letting that stick and roll around in my head so much, but I've tried to be more playful.
Well, I think this is why Failibration. I think every creative, and I think every human has creativity in them, but I think everyone in touch with that understands how scary it is to do something original of their own in their own voice. I love what you just said because there's a difference between finding your voice and staying true to your voice after criticism begins, and I think that is. Most people are so stuck on finding their voice that they're not ready for the criticism. And it's like, hey, can you find your voice and love it enough to say, this is who I am? And no matter if 100 people hate this voice, I'm going to stay true to it.
Yes.
And keep going, which I just think is it's a whole different chapter.
It is a whole different, and that's where now I'm going, there are people and spaces in which I need to be a lot of spaces which I need to be criticized and I want to get better, but it's being selective about who I'm listening to and how I'm listening to that and how I work through that and not let it make me crumble, but instead chip me into something stronger. Cause I really do want to grow as an artist and I want to communicate in a way that the messages find people and in a creative way. I want to grow as an illustrator. Like I want to be better. And so, I do have to take those words, but I can't let them slam me to the ground the way they did as I began. Like now I'm going, okay. Cause I also, that same, book was seen by so many children who then said, I received photos or letters from kids. And so I have to, if I'm going to listen to a critic who said that's fun to look at, but overdone, and then also look at a handwritten letter from a kid saying, this is my favorite thing in the whole world. Man. And I drew a picture of it too.
What a beautiful perspective.
And I'm like, okay, which one's more important?
Which one's more important? So
actually, kid, you're wrong. It was overdone.
And I quit. And I'm never doing anything ever again.
You have bad taste, kid. Like, let me show you Kirkus's review. They knew it.
So when it comes to Failibration, explain to us like what this is tackling. I mean, I think you kind of already are saying all of us fail. I think when it comes to a lot of creative speaking specifically, we don't even try to create because we're so afraid of failure. Yeah. So we won't even pursue it. We have the idea.
Some of my favorite people in the world that are so wildly talented in music, in arts, in so many fields are like waiting for permission or waiting for like the right it's not ready. It's not. I'm like, no, like this fear is holding us back. And there's so much love that needs to be like lean into and release this stuff. Like, it's okay. It's not perfect. Like, come on. We need this. We need your songs. We need your art. We need it.
It's good.
Come on. And so that's where I was working on a totally different book. I was like very excited about it. But we threw this party and it was called a Failibration. And it was just like a joke, kind of fun, because I wanted to bring people together, but also didn't want the stakes of the party to be so high. Like, so I thought, well, what if it's about failure? Then if it goes poorly, it's on theme. Like, we did it. And, but it turned out it was not just funny, like we laughed a lot, but also this room full of strangers became really close because it was vulnerable. People were sharing funny stories that were cringy.
That make you say, oh my goodness, how did you keep going?
But also going, yeah, I kind of had that happen one time too. And so it was very moving. And it was an idea that had life. And it was almost like one of those situations where I wasn't forcing this idea into the world. It was going like, hey, I need to exist. Come on, let's go. Like, follow me. So I had to be in service to the idea. So we sort of paused the other book and began focusing on how can we nurture this thing. So people began throwing their own failabrations. And it was people in contexts like schools, in businesses, places I never imagined, from preschoolers all the way to like people in prison rehab. Like,
wow. So
I started seeing that, this is not just a silly idea. It's silly in how we approach it. It's a very human thing that we all have moments that didn't go the way we thought. And instead of letting failure define us, it can be a thing that becomes an experience, or it's part of the process. And especially struck home for me seeing it used in places where there were children and seeing such a need, because the way in which kids grow up is this like pressure cooker.
Oh, anxiety higher than ever.
Yes. And everything from social pressure, test scores, to all this like,
being bombarded with so much information. It's overwhelming.
And we would see it even in doing drawing exercises with kids where I'm going, okay, here's, I'm going to draw a circle and we're going to draw these ears and it's a rabbit. And they're like crumpling paper and getting upset because it doesn't look exactly like the one on the board. And so I started to see, as educators were using failabrations, it was a way for them to talk about, hey, I'm a teacher and I know I'm supposed to be the grown up and know everything, but I've messed up. And here's some things I've done wrong. And for kids to hear that, like, is transformative. It gives them permission to like, hey, I can try things. School is a place where I can grow.
Yeah.
And in church settings where people began doing these, and you start seeing that school, church, like all these places should be places that are safe for us to grow and help each other grow.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's a playful way to talk about something that is a lot of pressure. And so we created this book that is a failabration book, in which people can share it with anybody in their life who's had a mistake, and they can work through it, whether it's spilled
which
milk.
Is everyone. It should be everyone if we're real with ourselves.
And when we ask kids, or a room full of people, share a story, you're going to get a standing ovation, but share your story. And it's everything from, I wrecked my bike to, our marriage didn't work out, and you're going, this is really heavy, but we're here to carry it with you. And there's something so special that happens. So I've seen it happen in places that, like bookstores and libraries.
It's so special.
Gymnasiums. And
it's got to be so different writing the book and then experiencing this side of the book, where people begin, like the context, when they take it into their world and you begin to see how it interacts with them human by human. And like they start sharing these stories and you realize, oh, wow, how much wider it must be than even as you were thinking when you were putting it on the page, right?
Yeah. I mean, all I can know is that, oh, I need this, or, oh, my kids need this. But I could have never imagined that there's a kid in, Ohio who's, a perfectionist.
Shout out to Ohio. That's where I'm from.
And he's wrestling with something. And their mom, they read this book together and suddenly feels a little bit lighter. So it's really silly. And the book has mice and little monsters and things, but it's about grace, which is this beautiful thing that we use and say that word, and we think flowers and pretty, when it's kind of messy sometimes, and it deserves to be presented in a way that's playful and that everybody's allowed to experience it.
Well, you talk to so many crowds, so many families, so many individuals and professionals. Tonight, And over these next few days, you're going to talk to rooms filled with creative professionals that work in the church, which is exciting. I can't wait to hear what you share to them. But to our wider audience watching this podcast, if you had to give them one last piece of encouragement, what would you say to this audience right here?
Oh, yeah. There's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. There was a man, Phil Oakes, who's a musician, who said that beauty is the greatest form of protest. And I think about that a lot now as people are, I feel and sense as we travel, there's so much anxiety and so many people worried and so many people talking about like, well, the world's getting this way or it's so hard, and just create something beautiful. like instead of complaining, let's create. And there's so many people out there with the ability to add beauty. And so my invitation is to everybody, just make something beautiful today. And if you can't make something beautiful, find something beautiful and share it. Or somebody making something beautiful, share that, because we sure need it. And beauty is this great way to protest the ugliness of everything else. Just add something beautiful.
And when the hater arrives, just tell yourself they're human that needs to be loved.
Human needs to be loved. And it's hard, but
I love you. I love you regardless of that comment.
Yeah, here's a corn dog. There you go.
Brad Montague, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We could not be more appreciative.
Sojo. It's great.
Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of the Monochrome Podcast. We love these interviews. We love having these conversations, and we love knowing that you are semi a part of that. So thank you for joining. Make sure to check out the show notes once again to get all the details and links to the things that we've talked about in today's episode. Same for other episodes that you may watch. You can learn more about our guests, our sponsors, and how you can get plugged in with SALT Community. We are more than just a conference. We do have a few things we do throughout the year as well. But make sure to also subscribe to the podcast, share with your friends, drop a 5-star review or rating for us. It helps us out immensely, and it helps us equip other churches as well who maybe are looking for more resources than what they currently have. And next week, little teaser, we will be hearing from Carson Burchett, who is a producer at Sidecar Production House. So he is in that music
extraordinaire.
vein. Yes. I mean, Sidecar, what a cool name too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's going to be a great interview, and it is me and JT on that episode. We can't wait to have you join us. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye.